Are there aspects of truth worthwhile considering as we discuss what truth is? I think the answer is a hearty yes. Please stay with me to the end of this video as we discuss some of the philosophical aspects of truth. Hello, I'm John Schaefer. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Seeking Truth. One purpose of this channel is to discuss many aspects of truth. There are many things to consider which will affect the very definition of what truth is. Today in this video, I'd like to discuss 4 theories of truth. And from a philosophical point of view, the 4 theories of truth I want to discuss are the correspondence theory, the coherence theory, the pragmatic theory, and the constructivist theory. First, let's discuss the correspondence theory. Both Plato and Aristotle were early proponents of the correspondence theory. So the correspondence theory has been around for well over 2,000 years now. It's one of the oldest theories of truth, and it remains one of the most widely accepted and most widely used theories of truth. It was also endorsed in medieval times by Thomas Aquinas, and it has been supported in the 20th century by people such as Bertrand Russell and G.E. Moore. The correspondence theory says, in essence, a statement is true if that statement matches or corresponds to reality, thus the correspondence theory. If a statement corresponds to, if it matches facts, then we say that that statement is true. Here's an example of the correspondence theory. The door is red. That statement is true if and only if the door is in fact red. Now, of course, there are many factors that come into play, even with this simple example. What shade of red is the door? What if I cannot distinguish between various colors? What if I am colorblind and I cannot tell that the door is red? What if it's too dark to see the door clearly and to determine that it is red? Do those questions mean that that statement is not true? Well, actually, those and many other such questions are out of scope for this video. I'd like to make another video that digs into more detail about it. And if you're interested, please leave me a comment down below. And then I might delve deeper into the topic in a future video. For now, though, let's jump into the second theory of truth, a philosophical theory of truth, and that is the coherence theory. The coherence theory was advocated by 17th and 18th century philosophers Spinoza and Leibniz. It was also advocated by 19th century philosopher Hegel. Now, I apologize if I butchered those names. Those are the ways that I think they're supposed to be pronounced. Please let me know in the comments if I'm messing them up, and I'll try to correct for later videos. The coherence theory says a statement is true if it coheres with a set of interrelated systems or beliefs. So truth is determined by the coherence of propositions or statements. Also, truth is based on how consistent a set of propositions fit within the system of interconnected beliefs. So the less consistent a statement fits within this system of beliefs, the less true it is. The more consistent it is with those other beliefs in the system, the more likely that statement is to be true. How well do propositions relate to the entire set of systems and beliefs? That is one question that is asked by the coherence theory. In the words of one writer, how well do the propositions hang together? Proponents of the coherence theory claim that it reflects real-world reasoning. People judge ideas based on how well those ideas fit within their existing beliefs. Opponents of the coherence theory point out several challenges with it. For example, more than one systems of beliefs might exist and yet be contradictory. Even within an individual might have more than one system of beliefs, and those might be contradictory. This is certainly true across many individuals or across cultures. So how well then do we determine which system is the correct or true system? Without some sort of external point of reference, a belief and its opposite may coherently fit into systems of beliefs or different systems of beliefs. Even made up fictional systems of beliefs might be coherent, yet that coherence does not support their being true. And coherence theory does not account for experience and empirical evidence. I might have a system of beliefs and I do an experiment or I see some empirical evidence, and that evidence or that experience does not conform with my system of beliefs, and so I just disregard that. Well, the coherence theory does not account for experience or empirical evidence. According to one source, coherence must be grounded in perception. So if I do not perceive something as being true, I do not think it is true. And there are many issues with that point of view. Without beating a dead horse too much, let me move on to the third theory, philosophical point of view about truth, and that is the pragmatic theory. Now, the pragmatic theory was promoted in 19th and 20th century philosophers, or by 19th and 20th century philosophers, Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. The pragmatic theory says truth is defined by what works. Those who ascribe to the pragmatic theory of truth believe that truth does not exist in an abstract philosophical realm. Rather, we derive truth by engaging with the world around us, by figuring out what works in the world around us. If something works, we regard it as true using the pragmatic theory. If something does not work, we regard it as not true. So to describe this theory, let's revisit the example we used, or I used, when discussing the correspondence theory of truth, and that was, the door is red. I said then that the statement is true if and only if the door is in fact red, and I still consider that to be a true statement. Nevertheless, using the pragmatic theory, some might say that the truth that the door is red can only be obtained and understood if those using the statement can properly conceive of what red is. And I mentioned if I were colorblind and couldn't distinguish one color from another, using the pragmatic theory, I might say, well, that statement, the door is red, is not true. People would state that without an understanding of red, what red means, what red is, the statement, the door is red, in fact, has no meaning. It is meaningless and thus cannot be conceived of as true. Now, using the pragmatic theory is perfectly acceptable in some situations. I might say, this food is delicious, or this book is easy to read, or I have a fast car. My car is fast. Each of these statements has to do with a matter of perspective. My perspective, for me, they are true. And although others might not agree with the statements, that does not negate my statements and make them false. You might say, my car goes 200 miles an hour. And I say, well, my car only goes 120 miles an hour. So for you, my statement that my car is fast would not ring true, would not be true, because your car goes very much faster than mine. However, that does not negate my statement and make it false. Now, before we move on to the fourth and last philosophical theory of truth, I want to touch on the topic of absolute truth versus relative truth. And I will discuss this more fully in another video. Please comment below if you would like me to discuss this, what aspects of absolute truth or relative truth you would like me to discuss, and so on. For now, I just want to make one point about it. Some might say that the correspondence theory of truth is the only theory that describes absolute truth. So we have a spectrum, the correspondence theory, the coherence theory, the pragmatic theory, and the constructivist theory. And those lie on a spectrum. The correspondence theory of truth represents absolute truth. I might not go all the way there and say that it is a spectrum such as that. As I just mentioned, the pragmatic theory works for many statements of perspective. The same people that say that, though, might say that the other three theories we're discussing relate to some form of relative truth, or relative truth in degrees away from absolute truth. And for the most part, that is true. No pun intended. If we accept that to be true, then I would say the constructivist theory is the most relative as compared to the correspondence theory. So now that I've gone there, let's get into the fourth and final theory, philosophical theory of truth that I want to discuss today, and that is the constructivist theory. Just checking my clock to see how long we've been. The constructivist theory, like the pragmatic theory, the constructivist theory of truth is also credited, by some at least, to Charles Sanders Peirce. And it says that truth is constructed through social processes. As I just stated with the constructivist theory, truth is relative. Or as I just stated about the constructivist theory, truth is relative. Truth is what people construct it to be through their various social interactions. What is considered by some to be true can vary across times, across places. It can be modified by many different contexts and cultures. Rather than providing objective truth to stand on, constructivist theory provides truth based on purely subjective criteria. With constructivist theory, you have things like my truth and your truth. And in fact, my truth and your truth can be diametrically opposed, can be 180 degrees out from each other, and yet both be true. This seems to be how much of our modern life is judged in the Western world, certainly in the media, on YouTube, on any legacy media channel that you watch. There is a huge use of the constructivist theory of truth, my truth versus your truth. And I consider there to be many problems with the constructivist theory. Once again, I'm not going to dive deeper into those in this video. If you would like me to do more of a deep dive into the constructivist theory and how it can be problematic, please leave a note down below. Leave a comment below. All right, I think that's all for today. In closing, if you've not already done so, please click the like button below. This tells YouTube to work their algorithm and to share this video with others. Also, please subscribe if you have not subscribed already, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when I release new content. As I've mentioned a few times already, please comment below. I'd like to have some interaction going back and forth in these videos, or as a result of these videos. And last thing, please watch some of my other videos and comment on those. Let's get the conversation going and moving. I hope to build this channel and have many more people engaged. Until my next video, take care and God bless. Bye-bye.